Here in the part of the National Capital Region that I am of Canada is I find there's a lot of repetition in the news, and there's so many things going on in the world, including if you just limit it to the province of Quebec, for example, and yet the same news is repeated. And I'm not saying it's repeated like at 8 a.m. or noon or 5 or 6 p.m. It's repeated often within the same 30 minutes, the same exact footage, which is there's got to be more footage in this one for a lot of these scenarios, but and uh, and it's also almost the same speeches, and for me this is a form of propaganda. It's when there's so much happening in the world and there's so many people working in journalism, and it's so simple now with technology to make up the stories, in faster ways and even verify the data. It's very strange that this is all that we see and that we're so very detached from the rest of the world. When I was in Japan, I interviewed a few young people, and they never heard of Greta, a climate emergency activist. And it's strange, it's strange that that type of ignorance is allowed at those levels there as well. So I'm watching the news yesterday, and Biden is presenting Harris, and for a lot of people, this would be a hopeful speech, and because it seems like it's definitely going to be a different type of personality pathologies, than Trump, except that it's the same kind of speech you hear decade after decade, though, which is inspirational, but it's still the wrong messages under the wrong worldviews much too late. And so, I mean, and then there's specialists in politics who'll be invited to talk afterwards, and they say, "Oh, she talked about, or he talked about these topics, like climate change, blah blah blah, possibilities, blah blah blah, systemic injustice, blah blah blah, jobs, blah blah blah." So, it's the same speeches, and when somebody talks about it, but there's just one or two words, and you don't even know what they're going to do, and you don't even know if they've already decided or they've even thought about what they're going to do, and if it's things that you agree with, but you want to support them just because they mention a word. It again. I have to refer you to my theory on the mental illnesses that affects majorities, that I've labeled as HSD. It's a human domestication syndrome that is now out of control, and that is therefore can be used because it's majorities, it's cultures, it's a species. It can be used for predictive purposes, and it's going to lead just one way at this point. It's the tipping point has been passed for this particular proto civilization as well. So, I was kind of teary eyed with Senator Harris's speech, and it's not for the same reason that most people would be, and it's because it tells me that people find hope in what is actually the same kind of disconnections from reality, but with a tiny, tiny dimension of a deviation towards what is most likely a more positive. But again, it's still the same old Monopoly game where nobody wins. I mean, and one way to see this is how in a speech that was supposed to be inspirational, is it starts and it ends with fundraising. And at the same time, I'm watching the news, I'm reading the things going on underneath, and they said in India the toll is 2.3. Now, I don't know if they were talking about 2.3 million people testing positive, but I don't know why they put a dollar sign in front of the 2.3, and this was repeated and repeated. Was it an error? Are people defined with, the monetary paradigm money sign now when you talk about the victims of things? I don't know. So for me, watching this, my tears are more like and after I post this video, I'll post a few pictures of what I'm talking about. And one of them is something I wrote a few years ago about Trump, beginning in elections, and how he was probably the most important generic product of his time to help citizens of the United States get an honest view of themselves. And it's very strange that nobody's talking about these mental illnesses. For example, that this person, Trump, could be saying all these things and acting all this way, and he's not. Well, I mean, he's a comic book character a little bit, right? He's playing a role, but his role is really him. This is really who he is. He's become this person, and that this, and there's actually even just 1% of the population that would have, really voted for him, and that there's still supporters. Now, this is a type of mental illness that people should be talking about. They shouldn't be saying blah blah blah, build a better America, blah blah blah, fix everything he's done, and they don't talk about him as being just a generic product of his time. He's a reflection of the culture, and they don't address this. So again, it's so disconnected from who they are as a species, and they can't see this. So it's very, very sad for me to see, that if I was stuck in the same paradigm as the Homo communion, the 99.6% of the people primates that wear clothes, except they don't wear the right kind of clothes at the right times, that they have car keys, and most of them don't drive properly, and they use language, except they use it very inefficiently, and that's very easy to prove if you're a learning specialist and a communication expert like me. I just love to get dared to a challenge to prove this anywhere. It's very sad to see this. It's very sad. And I don't know why people are still saying she's African American. I don't know why they're using that term for the color of skin. And she did say that her origins are the country of India and Jamaica, I believe. So I don't know why that qualifies as the term that is still recycled in the media as African American. And again, just using the word racism, and I've recently joined a group of interracial singles, and I had to say I don't use the word race because it's scientifically inaccurate, and using it is promoting this ignorance, this tribe versus tribe mentality. And so the balance of power goes just from one side to the other side, and it's all about that. It's not about that we're all just one people. Our species is one people. It's not separated in races. It's just separated in about 5 ethnicities of origins. And again, this was determined by environments of ancestors, where they lived, what the climate was, what the nutrition was, what the activities were. And again, there's advantages and disadvantages that are slight. But one thing that is common to everybody is everybody suffers from HSD. And you can't, not make this the main conversation in politics or in mental health or in education. And you can't not do that and expect things to get better. They're going to get worse. So it's a form of denial that is very, very sad to see. So in a way, for me, probably seeing how people are excited about these candidates, and I understand because I used to suffer from HSD as well. I would have said finally, to something that is obvious, but it's not at all the reality of what people should say. No, HSD is obvious. So for me, if I see that reactions are positive, and it's just a tiny variation of the same type of false paradigms to be operating under, as if things are going to get better and not worse, it is, for me, I'd almost wish for Trump, if I care about citizens from the United States of America, I'd almost wish for Trump to be reelected. Because if 4 years of him didn't allow themselves to see who they really are in the mirror, and therefore apply the right solutions to mental illnesses that affect majorities, because it doesn't just affect Trump supporters, but people that actually want to do something that is just slightly different than Trump, and criticize Trump. It's really in the same group. It's like, for me, I'm a non-religious person, so listening to a conversation at a table with people that are from different religions, they're all saying the same thing. They would be very upset with that. So there's no real difference between Republicans or Democrats or in Canada between all the different parties here as well. One way to do politics in a more democratic manner, it would be uh, to, let's say, ask really big philosophical or ideological questions and then present the evidence of the time based on this. Could be climate emergency, could be COVID-19, and just see where people fall, and vote. I believe this. This makes sense to me. And the people that say, no, it doesn't make sense to me because I know this one person who, is the exception. Then oh, okay, well, make sure you say why, because then we know scientific paradigms don't come naturally to you. For example, your personal pathologies is you create or you generalize based on one or two situations. But eventually, it would screen out more responsible public servants because, I mean, the speeches I hear from Biden and Harris are just like Trump. They're not within the realms of how to define a public servant. It serves elites and it serves paradigms that are toxic, like tribe versus tribe mentality is still involved in their speeches. The monetary paradigm and how it can only continue to manifest various forms of human trafficking and human rights violations. It's still in their speeches. There's no real change that can be measured, by somebody like me that thinks outside the box. The ecocentric humanist, who sees the world in the way that my various understanding of things sees the world, and it's very science based and it's very easy to prove. So again, if Trump was elected and things got worse, it might in the long term do more good because it would be like, I can't believe we allowed him the first time. I can't believe he's not going from jail to mental institution, jail to mental institution almost every week based on his behaviors. And I can't believe that, there's so many people that allow this type of behavior, and even people that work for him and, could, let's say, arrest him. They work for him, but, the greater good would, make them arrest him, and they don't. So again, everybody, 99.6% of people suffer from something that has not been addressed yet. And of course, there cannot be a politician who talks about this because it would be like, if the majority of people allow Trump to be there, 4 years like this, and even 3% of the population would, you know, want to vote for him again, then you can know that, if a politician actually started talking about the real world and the real reality of the human animal up here, then they would be like, there'd be like thousands of people wanting to kill that person for being a messenger of reality. So it's a strange time of history to be observing all these things and see that people that I would have admired when I suffered from HSD are now, as sick as the people that, fall under the worst criteria, but that to somebody from an outside perspective is just a tiny, tiny variation. Biden, to me, studying his speech and his mind, and it was the first time I kind of paid attention to him for more than a minute. I don't really follow that kind of stuff. I'm more of a scientific kind of researcher. But in scientific, in the social sciences, based more on patterns. So, and it's easy to predict, even before I listen to a speech, what would be a personality type that would more likely be successful. Again, a generic type of follower to Trump would be somebody like this. But I can see that that Biden might probably not last, the entire 4 years. His mind seems to be losing the ability to focus, and he seems to be speaking in very, it's a patriotic record that keeps playing and playing, and I think that's what keeps him going as long as he has, because already I think his mind would be very challenged now if there was a really big situation that he needed to be focusing on for, let's say more than 36 hours. So it's good that maybe Harris, whose mind might be sharper, but still has been playing these speeches and political games for a long time, that she's still she's good for the political scenes, but she probably wouldn't be good for the real world scenarios where and I'm not criticizing her. She's probably one of the best that they have to offer. But the thing is the political world is not a problem-solving paradigm. It's not a culture that solves problems. It's a culture that pretends to find creative ways to get back to the status quo of business as usual. And it's not a paradigm that actually benefits the majority of the members of these democratic nations. It's really the elite, and it's the same. I mean, when I was doing research in Africa, and I see the amounts of millions and billions of dollars that go into these large organizations, is I see that they are lost before they reach the villages and the communities in need. And this happens for years and years, and it's all about money gets allocated to new vehicles, security guards, building a new building, paying some foreigner that arranged to get the land out of the locals to grow rice so he could sell the rice to the United Nations to give to the refugees. And then the refugees are like, okay, thanks for the food, but we already had rice in our country. That's not the kind of help we need. Rice. It's more like mental health trauma and things like that, but services. But again, who's trained for that, right? Who's trained for that when nobody admits to HSD, right? So it's a strange world where I think when you talk about people now, you have to put a money sign in front of it, and that's the world that everybody seems to be happy to continue to participate in and throw money at, as if money will improve the quality of the situation, but it will not. It will only make it much worse and much faster.